You're listening to Michael Boyd on Radio West 5.
I'm here with Kay Morrison, Depute Provost of Fife. Kay, we have a momentous occasion coming up to commemorate the centenary of the Battle of Jutland. How big a deal is this for the community?
This is a huge deal for Fife, for the community of Fife, for Rosyth particularly, though it's true that several other towns along the coast of Fife played their part in the First World War and to some extent in the Battle of Jutland, but Rosyth's role was prominent and pivotal, and we'll be marking that tomorrow.
Thanks, Kay. And the bell from HMS Hood, it's just been unveiled by the Princess Royal to mark the 75th anniversary of the Royal Navy's loss of life at the Jutlands. And it was hit by the German Bismarck on the 24th of May, 1941. And only 3 of the 1,415 sailors survived.
Yes, that's right. That was also a tragedy. What we are thinking about tomorrow and over the next few days, in fact, are multiple tragedies. Thousands of lives were lost. Over 6,000 British lives were lost. And 14 of our ships went down. So in terms of war events, of personal family tragedies and national, this is momentous. It's something we should be remembering and commemorating respectfully.
The whole of the Fife community is going to be invited to line the Hawes Pier at 2 p.m. on Saturday, is that?
Yes, that's right. In fact, there are several events taking place tomorrow. We will start off in Rosyth, where the Princess Royal will attend with at least one other member of her family, and prominent Scottish politicians will be present, all to mark this occasion. And a wreath will be laid, a book of remembrance will be there in the church. That's really just the beginning of the day. Several other events will take place during tomorrow. In South Queensferry, for instance, in the cemetery, in the graveyard, there will be another ceremony. And then later, Hawes Pier, where there will be an additional ceremony. Later on, there will be a flotilla, so I'm hoping that loads of ships will join that flotilla and that plenty of people in Fife will line the shores, as you've just said, and will enjoy the spectacle and will remember too.
And I understand there's a special film being created for large screens, which people can view and watch.
Yes, and that film will be something that we can all use, especially young people can look back and interpret what happened and understand that battle, and maybe more about World War I and II and wars in general. It's a way of learning about history in a very interesting but focused way, because it's really about us. It's about Fife and the people of Fife and the role that they have played.
Kay, the band of the HMS Royal Marines played yesterday. I didn't get to hear that. Do you know of anyone that was at that event?
Yes, actually, now you come to mention it. The Royal Marines Band has a couple of events, or it's playing at a couple of events during this time. And that is excellent because it enhances the atmosphere, sets the mood. And it is wonderful that that's happening. Yesterday evening on HMS Kent, an event took place to really mark properly for the Royal Navy the beginning of these commemorative ceremonies and events. So some of us were invited on board, were given a tour of the ship, which is of course a warship, and we saw a presentation, heard a presentation, and then right at the end there was a sunset salute, a special ceremony when the salute was taken, obviously, and the Union flag was lowered and presented to Donald Wilson, who is the Lord of the Force. He's also Lord Provost of Edinburgh, and he's the Lord Lieutenant for Edinburgh. So he's a Lord of quite a number of things, come to think of it. That was a very, very moving ceremony. It was brief, but very beautiful. And there was a moment's silence there Quite rightly, really, because people are beginning to think of the number of lives that were lost and how significant that battle was, how momentous and how traumatic it really was for many of those who were involved, even if they were alive, if they were able to come back. Everybody was well shaken by what happened at the Battle of Jutland because of the size of the event, because of the number of ships lost, and because the German Navy began to depict it as a defeat for us. But of course, ultimately, it wasn't, even though we lost ships and we lost thousands of lives, thousands of men. Ultimately, because we had better vessels and better strategies, as you know, in the end, we won. But we would rather not have lost those lives at all.
And you talked about the emotion there. I mean, Keith Evans, he's 96, okay? And he's still chairman of the HMS Hood Association and served on board. And he's quoted as saying, "It's quite emotional. I was lucky not to be there that day. It was a real shock throughout the country when it went down."
Yes, and that's certainly not an exaggeration. It was a shock for so many people. We got some of the tactics wrong on the day, and one particular senior officer has been blamed for that. And I think in retrospect, given the amount of research that has been done, especially over recent years, I think that is actually correct. It is, that's accurate. But yes, that gentleman is probably voicing the thoughts of many, many people. Many people were traumatized and families bereaved. My great uncle was at the Battle of Jutland. His name was David Jameson. He was on the Defence, and that's the name of the ship. The captain of that ship was Arbuthnot, and according to one expert, the captain decided to pull the ship out a little, begin to move round the fleet. If that had been successful, we would now be saying, what a bold, courageous, imaginative thing to do. However, it simply meant that the Defence was a sitting target for the Germans, and they opened fire. It went down almost at once, losing well over 1,000 lives, and amongst them my great uncle. And his mother never recovered from the death of her son. She grieved for the rest of her life, really. She was so distraught and so heartbroken that although members of the family tried to comfort her and tried to think of ways in which they could make her feel a little happier, they failed. They were running out of things, really, to suggest, until one day her husband, my mother's grandfather, said, look, we've tried everything. Do you want to try my pipe? This is in Northern Ireland, so if I lapse into a more prominent local accent, or that accent, you shouldn't be surprised. He said, do you want to try a draw o' my pipe? And she said, because she was becoming desperate. She'd been so miserable for so long. I think that she would have tried anything. She said, yes, okay. Yeah, all right, I'll give it a go. So she started to smoke the pipe, a little bizarrely, and there is a photograph of her in the family, sitting all in black. She's holding a pipe. And it's probably psychological. She felt it did helped her to get over a little the death of her son.
Right.
Okay. But that's just one family tragedy. That's just one broken heart. Yeah. When you factor in the other thousands of families affected, then you begin to understand the scale of the heartbreak. I think that sometimes when we talk about numbers, the number of ships, I think it was 14 ships, our ships that were lost, and well over 6,000 lives, you can almost sanitize it. You can be quite subjective and clinical. It's just numbers, those are numbers. But actually, every single one of those people was a human being, just like you and me, somebody's son, inevitably in that case, a member of a family, and somebody who was missed for a long, long time. And then you begin to understand the scale of this particular tragedy and how overwhelming it must have been for so many people for so long.
You could say that the ripples in the water represented the ripples through the families.
Yes, I think that's a very good way of putting it. It's very poetic, Michael. Those ripples spread out really very, very far, miles and miles and miles, because many of those families wouldn't necessarily have lived around about here. Obviously, from Northern Ireland, from all over the place, those chaps came. And some of them, including my great uncle, had been in the Navy for some years. He had been on several ships. And probably for him, this was another ship. Okay, he knew he was going into battle, but his expectation would have been that he would return. He would have known it was dangerous. They all knew there were dangers, of course. But he'd survived before and probably expected to do so again.
Kay, thanks for talking so personally about the commemorations that are going to be happening on Saturday. To end, there's going to be a poignant moment in the commemorations when the band of the HMS Royal Marines will lead the community through the streets of South Queensferry and to the Priory Church for a short service.
Yes, that's right. And that, I think, will be quite a dramatic finish, almost a flourish at the end of that part of tomorrow's events. I'm hoping that lots and lots of people will join in. And each of those people, I'm certain, will have a different mixture of thoughts. Some of the children, for instance, will be thinking about the work that they've been doing, the projects they've been involved in, associated with Jutland. There'll be other people who may well have more personal associations, and for whom that will be tinged with maybe a touch of sadness, but there should be a lot of positive feeling too, because that event and all of the events are also focusing on the importance of reconciliation. Because while we're looking back 100 years, we're also focusing on the present and on the future. And we are determined to ensure that the strong, peaceful relationships that exist now are maintained. They need work. They won't just stay strong if we neglect them. So we all have to focus on those and be determined to maintain that peace.
Kay Morrison, thank you for being so frank about the commemorations, and thanks for your outlook on the commemorations themselves, and giving us a good personal insight into what it means to yourself.
It's my pleasure. Anytime at all. If I can talk to you again, maybe about something else, I would be absolutely delighted.
Radio West 5.